Good morning and welcome to Thursday. Here it is, fourth day of the week, and we get to jump in on this fourth day in Hosea 14. We're talking conclusion. And with the Lord, there can be a very happy conclusion. It all depends on how stubborn one is going to be and resistant to wisdom, to the great love of God, to the great humility of God, to the great wisdom and revelation of God, and to the marching, objective truth of God. There's something about our human nature that we just tend to move away from that out of fear, out of pride, out of selfish ambition. But when we connect with the nature of God, His amazing compassion, and then come to that realization that He really does know best. He really does know best. And so in the 14th chapter, after all of the drama, after all of the complaint, we get to this conclusion, and it is actually a picture of the ultimate end, the prophesied end of all things. Not up in heaven, but actually on the earth, and dealing with a group of people, the Israelites, the Hebrews, and dealing with them as a nation. And this is the context of the latter chapters of the book of Revelation, the last chapters of the book of Daniel. There's a time that's determined upon your people, Daniel. Seal it up until the end. And so we get to see a picture. I don't know about you, but I like to see into the future, and we have an opportunity to do that in Hosea 14. We're going to cover one simple verse. It's packed and rich with meaning. That's the way the Lord does it. Just a simple thing with great ramifications and depths of meaning and significance. And so we read here this single verse: I will be like the dew to Israel. One of the great promises, one of the great needs of the land of Israel is water. And one of the great promises is that if they would yoke together with Yahweh, He would change the way the water was occurring in the land. He would send the former and the latter rain, that He would prevent famine, that He would cause plenty. But it was going to require the Creator of all that is to be involved, to be brought in, to be counseled with, to be in deep relationship with. Israel found out very quickly what happened when you turn from the living God. Then all of the natural things which happen to the land happen, and it can get into some deep famine cycles. And even worse, if you offend God, the Creator of everything, there can even be an additional problem brought into the land. So Israel has experienced that historically. And as people, we can experience that. It's a terrible thing. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. One of the prophets declared that. I will be like the dew to Israel. So now we have that presence of moisture because of the temperature inversion, because of the warmth of the earth and the coolness of the air that would have cold moisture upon it. The result is a condensation out of the atmosphere onto the leaves of the grass. And if you had a good dew every morning, you would have a serious water quantity deposited out of the air, not distilled like rain, but the smallest droplets coating the ground every morning. Some people live in climates that they're aware of dew. I remember as a kid growing up in Ohio, those times that you would go out in the morning, there would be dew all over the ground. And because of that temperature inversion, the big differential between the temperature of the air and the temperature of the ground, and you get that physical meteorological phenomenon of dew. I will be like the dew to Israel. It's the idea of blanketing. It's the idea of covering with moisture. It's the idea of everywhere having life, because water is a symbol of life. He will blossom like a lily in the high places of Galilee, all over the land of Israel. When you have the presence of dew or the presence of rain, you also have something that happens, and that is the lily, this particular plant, just seems to spring up everywhere. There is life everywhere. There's green and colorful, there's the green of leaves and colorful flowers all over, even up into the hills, covering rocks. They're just everywhere. When there is a dew in Israel, there will be a blossoming of the lily in Israel. And this is God prophesying. This is what's going to happen with Israel. And then he intensifies this and comes up with an even bigger and better and stronger image. Like a cedar of Lebanon, he will send down his roots. His young shoots will grow. So now we get the picture of the cedar of Lebanon. Cedar of Lebanon is actually the national tree of Lebanon. It's well known in the Middle East as a symbol of righteousness, a symbol of life. It sends down deep roots so that it can get into water supply no matter how hot or dry it may become. It's rather drought resistant. It can live up to 1,000 years, and some species can grow to 130 feet tall. That is incredible. 130 feet tall. And it sends out its young shoots, and then cones and things form on it, and it's part of its growth pattern. And so here is this picture. The cedar of Lebanon, this huge, it would be like people in California, Northern California, talking about the redwoods, those tall pine trees in California. This tree is of the same family, basically. It is a coniferous tree. It's an evergreen. It is a pine. And there it is, and there it stands as a symbol right here in the middle of Hosea chapter 14, verse number 5, of after all of that complaint and after that explanation of how decadent and rebellion and disobedient and how tough things are going to be for Israel. What a great picture of life, of strength, of righteousness, of vitality, and longevity that God has laid out before them. So we have a takeaway today. We can look at this, the dew, the nature of lily that's everywhere. It just springs up. It smells good. It speaks of life rather than death. And then that tall, towering pine tree that speaks, it's called evergreen, that even in the winter it is green. The deciduous trees all shed their leaves and they are bare, and everybody, I think, would agree that it's pretty stark and pretty lifeless. But there, even in the snows of the northern areas of Hermon and other places in Israel, there stands that tree, and it is always green. It kind of sounds like that statement in the book of Psalms that says, "Blessed are those that walk not in the way of the sinners, sit in the seat of the scornful," so on and so forth. But he will be planted by rivers of living water, and he will bring forth his fruit in due season. His leaf will not wither. It simply will not wither. And that's that picture of the green leaf. Well, the picture of the cedar of Lebanon is it's a pine tree. It's evergreen. It always stays green. What a great promise. So as we go throughout our day today, maybe we can just mull over and over in our mind and let it sink down deep into our spirit. The plan of the Lord, that He is in the water distribution business. He is in the blossoming of the lily business. He is in the tall evergreen tree business. Deep roots, strong life, standing tall, evidencing righteousness, and not withering even under the most, quote, withering, unquote, heat. Wow, the Lord is good. So let that sink down into your spirit and encourage you today. I'll be looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.